I'm running out of room back here. I'm going to show you how to build a gaming PC inside of the HYTE Y40 mid-tower chassis. The processing power behind this bad boy is going to be the AMD Ryzen 9 7950X processor. Cooling this bad boy is going to be the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 360 ARGB liquid cooling unit. The graphics behind this beast are going to be provided by the Gigabyte GeForce RTX 4090 Gaming OC 24 gig card. The OS is going to be on the Sabrent Rocket 4 Plus G M.2 SSD. Secondary storage is going to be provided by the Samsung 870 EVO SSD, a 1TB drive. Then we're also going to have 32 gigs of Patriot Viper Venom DDR5 RGB RAM. All of this is going to sit on the Asrock X670E Pro motherboard. And then powering all of this, we're going to have the EVGA P5 1000 watt power supply. So without wasting any more time, let's get started. So we're going to start off with the motherboard first. I'm going to show you how to install the CPU. We need to remove this plastic tray. This tray is protecting the pins from being bent, so just be very careful. You may not be able to return the board if any one of those pins are bent. So we'll just go ahead and take that off here. Now this has already been taken off. I'm going to show you a different method in 1 second. Okay, that's going to expose those pins. So then here you're going to notice this little arm over here. The arm is being held down by this little piece of metal right here. We're going to push down and then pull out so that we can open up the tray. Lifting that releases this off of this lip here, and now we're able to open up this tray. So on the 7950, if we flip it over, we'll notice there's a gold pin on one of the corners. We're going to match this gold pin with a little triangle we see right over here. To bring you in a little bit closer, you can see that right over here. With the CPU face down like this, you'll notice that pin is right up on the top as well. If you can't see this pin for any reason, there's a notch right over here and another notch right over here, and that's going to line up with the notch right here and right here on the CPU socket as well. Then we could just drop that right in here. You don't need to push down, just drop it, wiggle it around just to make sure it's in there nice. Then we'll drop this tray, and then we'll go ahead and push this arm down. So if you've never removed this before, it's going to be a lot more difficult to just lightly pull out. So in that case, you would need to put the CPU in and then close it. When you're closing this little lid right over here, this pops out. So just make sure you save this. Then coming down a little bit, we're going to install the RAM. There's a specific way you need to install the RAM. If I turn it around over here, we can find the legend. So on that legend, we can see here, if we have 2 sticks of RAM, first is going to be DDR5 A2 and DDR5 B2. This would be A2, the second one, and B2 would be the fourth one. So being that we're installing 2 sticks of RAM, we're going to start on slot A2, which is this one here. We're going to go ahead and loosen this side up and this side. Those two lock the memory in place. That way they don't accidentally slide out. Now we're going to match this little notch right here with this notch in the center. So we'll go ahead and give this one a try here. And we'll push the memory down. Okay, it should slide in easily. And then you notice once we pushed it in, that locked these two in place. So we know that that slid in perfectly. Now on B2, the fourth one, we'll go ahead, open this up and this up. So we've already seen that the memory installs this way, but if you install it this way with the sticker facing out, and it's going to be different on every single RAM, but you'll notice that little notch looks like it almost lines up, but if we drop it right in place, it's going to seesaw. So if we turn it around and just push down a little bit, you saw again, those two snap right in place. And now we've installed 32 gigs of Patriot Viper Venom RGB RAM. So now let's go ahead and install the M.2 SSD. That's going to be underneath this heatsink. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and remove this heatsink. And that goes ahead and opens up this M.2 slot over here. So we'll just grab that M.2 SSD. We'll match up the notch right here with the notch right over here. And we can just match it up here. Now, once we match it up, go ahead, push it in. Make sure these gold fingers disappear. And now we'll go ahead and drop the heatsink back on there. Make sure on the bottom, if there's a blue protective film or anything along those lines, you peel that off so that you leave behind this thermal pad. And now that we've installed the CPU, the RAM, and the M.2 SSD, now we can install the liquid cooling unit. So for the liquid cooling unit, first we're going to start off by moving the motherboard. Now we're going to go ahead, grab the radiator and the pump. On the bottom of the pump, you're going to notice there's this film. Go ahead, remove it. That way you don't forget for later. Now you'll find two of these little brackets. I'm going to grab one. I'm going to put this aside just for right now. I'm going to grab one. And then with this lip facing up, we're going to drop a screw right in here. Then we're going to go ahead and grab the pump, drop that screw right into this hole, and then we'll screw that in. Okay, and then we'll repeat the same process right over here. We'll keep this cable underneath this. Make sure everything's straight over here with that cable. Now setting this aside just for a second, we'll bring the motherboard back. And now we'll go ahead and unscrew these 4 screws. And we'll remove these. Make sure you keep this in the motherboard box. That way you don't lose it just in case you need it later. Same goes with the screws. Okay, now in this package, we'll find 4 of these. We'll go ahead and drop these just right over these screw holes from those screws we just removed. So with these, we need to be a little careful. They look very similar, but they're different. So for the very top of the CPU, we're going to install this one. Notice the top has that rounded edge, and this little reverse screw, if anything, is towards the bottom. Since we're installing in the Ryzen 7000 series, we'll put this down right here, and we're going to be screwing on the very top. That's for the 7000 series. And then we'll use these screws. I'm going to drop them in as pilots. Same over here. Once they're in, we'll go ahead and screw them in tightly. Now this one, a little similar, but reversed. The screw is going to go on the very top as well. And the upside down screw is over here on the bottom as well. Now the rounded off side would be more over here, and then the circle is facing up instead of the other one facing down. Again, number 2, the top ones. And then we'll drop it right in. Same thing over here. Now because this is the last one, we can go ahead and screw this one in all the way. And this one as well. Tight but not overbearing. You don't want to break the motherboard. Now before we put the pump on, we want to make sure we apply some MX5 thermal paste that it comes with. So in the center here, we'll place a pea-size drop. And maybe a little bit more. And what I always do is I always pull this out a little bit so that it sucks back in, and I place the cap on for later in case we need it again. So now we'll place the radiator up here, hoses on this side because this is going to be towards the front of the case. And for the pump, now we're going to drop this over those reverse screws right over here on this top hole and this bottom hole. Same over here. And they're just going to slide through. Perfect. Now we'll use these thumb nuts. Screw it over here, maybe 50% of the way. Then diagonally from here all the way up here, 50% of the way. You can let go of the hoses now. Then we'll install one up here, 50% of the way. And on the last one, we'll screw that one in all the way. Like before, we want to make sure it's hard in there, but we don't want to over tighten it to break the board. I can't tell you how many turns it'll take. Use your best judgment. I went diagonal again. That way the paste spreads evenly. And now since we're here, we're going to go ahead and plug in the pump into either the AIO pump header or the CPU fan header, whichever one. If we don't have the AIO pump header, we'll plug it into the fan, and then the ARGB connection. So this motherboard has an AIO pump header right over here. So I'll go ahead and connect that 4-pin fan header. I'll just slide that right in here. Okay, easy enough. Now coming to the top right-hand corner, we'll find these two over here. Those are ARGB headers. We can use whichever we'd like. I use the one closest to the top. Easy enough to connect. So now that we've installed the CPU, the memory, the M.2 SSD, and the liquid cooler, the pump at least, let's go ahead and install this into the case. Before we put the motherboard inside of the case, we need to make sure that there are the correct amount of standoffs in the case that there are for the motherboard screw holes, and that they're in the correct location as well. That way we don't ground out the board. So there's one up here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then there's a 10th. Now let's check out the case. So on the case, there is one up here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The 10th one that would have been right here is missing. Now that's not a bad thing. Even though the motherboard does have a hole for it, there isn't a standoff there. So if there wasn't a hole on the board and there isn't a standoff here, it's not going to ground anything. Now, if there wasn't a hole on the motherboard and there was a post right over here, there is a chance it could have grounded things. So we're in a good spot right now. Now, one other thing we want to check is the 4-pin or 8-pin or 8+8 or 8+4 CPU EPS power. They would be right over here on the motherboard. Now we're going to put a liquid cooling radiator right up here. So that's going to make it incredibly difficult to get to these right over here. So now, knowing all that, we'll go ahead and place the motherboard right in here, not perfectly yet. And we'll place the radiator right over here just to keep it safe. Now let's go ahead and match up all the standoffs and the screw holes, just aligning things. Now we can see over here on the rear I/O, everything looks pretty good. We need to move that portion a little bit more. I think we're good now. The way I recommend we do it, that way we know everything is aligned, is we place one right up here, then one right here, and then one right over here horizontally. That way we know everything's good. So we'll place one in the center first, and we'll place it 50% of the way, not 100%. Okay, now that we have those, we know that everything is aligned, so we can go ahead and fill out the rest. Again, we'll do it horizontal, corner to corner. And now remember, we're skipping this one because there isn't a standoff behind there. And now that we're doing the very last one, we can go ahead and screw them all in 100%. So now we're going to go ahead and put the radiator up at the very top. But I just realized one thing. Right up here is where the 8-pin and the 4-pin EPS CPU Power are. Your board, there might be 2 8-pins or only 1 8-pin or only 1 4-pin. We only need to connect, for example, the 8-pin. The additional one, be it a 4 or an 8-pin, is for additional power, like for overclocking. I like to connect both though. But actually this case has an easy way to do that, just in case you forgot, like I did. At the top of the case, on the rear, we'll find this little lip right over here. If we pull on it, that goes ahead and releases the top of the case. So we have free access here. The way it's laid out is great because over here you can lay down some screws. If it were standing up, it's a lot easier for me to show you the way I've been showing you. Then right over here, you have access to all of the screw holes and the radiator and all the potential fans, push, pull, and however you do that. And then right over here, you have additional passage for the 4-pin and the 8-pin and anything else you might have over here, like a CPU or all-in-one fan pump header. Perfect. The way they did this, they thought of everything. So now before we put the radiator down over here, we're going to go ahead and connect the 8-pin EPS CPU Power. Still awkward the way everything is placed, but the fact that you could see what you're doing here makes it so nice. And now the 4-pin, perfect. And now we could just lay this out of the way so we could slide the radiator in. Now we'll drop the radiator right over here, turning it around. Now I see that's going to be a little bit of an issue, but because we can see it, we can deal with it. Perfect. And then the fan causes an issue, but again, because we could see everything, man, this is beautiful. I love the way they laid this out. It's perfect. Everyone should lay it like this. Unless, of course, you have a removable. Everybody should lay out removable. Anyway, now for these screw holes, we're going to be using these screws that come with the Arctic and these washers. So we're going to have to raise it a little teeny tiny bit so that these screw holes go in these lines. And then I want to make sure that everything lines up. Perfect. So we did one all the way up here. Now I'll do the one all the way down here. So now I'm going to do the same for all of them. So I'll be right back. So now that all of them are there, we're going to go ahead and tighten all of them 100%. I'll do this off camera as well. All right, so now they're all done. So let's go ahead and stand the case up. So now with the case standing up, we'll go ahead and turn it around. Now we don't need to do it now, but I recommend it because when we put the riser card for the video card up, it's going to block all the ports right over here, and it's going to make everything impossible to get to. So what we're going to do is we're going to plug in all the front panel header cables. So let's just take a quick look to see where everything is. So here we could see there's USB 3.0. There's also USB Type-C. Then we have the ATX 24 pin. That's not front panel header, but I'm just calling it out. And then we have 2 USB 2.0 ports right over here and 1 HD audio over here. So knowing all that, come around the back, we'll grab the USB 3.0. And since we have these side holes that are going to go on the side of the fans are going to be on the inside. 2 additional fans that I got for this case. Since it doesn't bring additional fans, I'm going to slide this right over here. Yep, perfect. The USB 3.0 is right here. And then the USB Type-C connection is just under that. So I'll slide that right under there. HD audio is all the way at the rear of the case, so I'll slide it in under here. The front panel, the power button, reset button, power LED, that's going to be right up here. And then the 3-pin for the lower fan down here is going to be right over here as well. This case doesn't have USB 2.0 headers, so we don't need to worry about that. Starting off with USB 3.0, just verify this little notch here goes with the notch right over here. A little bit difficult to see. Whoops. And be very careful with this connection. The pins bend very easily. And then USB Type-C right under here. Simple connection. And we'll clean all that up in a second. Front panel, we can see there's a missing pin right over here. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the very top. 1, 2, 3, 4 at the very bottom. So we can see that's going to connect up here at the F panel 1 connection. Every case should come with this. That's it. I've just connected them all. Super simple. Then HD audio. See, there's a missing pin right at the very center, and that missing pin is at the top. And now the 3-pin DC fan connection, you can plug that into a 4-pin PWM connection, but you'll see there's a piece of plastic here that's going to go spaced out properly in between these two little bends on the fan header. I didn't have any additional fans, and I need to put fans here so that we get good airflow in the case. So definitely, in case you didn't know, yes, you will need additional fans for this case. So I had to pull 2 fans off of my Arctic 280mm. So this is a 140, and the cables are a little bit shorter than most, but that's okay. I have extension cables. So I'm going to go ahead, put it here. That way it sucks cool air from the outside of the case in here. And I'm going to go ahead, just screw in a pilot screw to keep it kind of in place there. Now these fans are great because they have rubber pads over here that'll stop from any sort of vibrations to reduce noise, and it keeps up with the Arctic theme. Connecting the ARGB. Actually, I'll do that behind here. Now I just need to connect this right up here to another header, or this down here to another header. And then the fan will need to be a different connection since it comes out of here. So I'll need 2 separate connections. That's okay. I have all of that. So just make sure when you buy additional fans that you have a way to connect them all. Okay, so now we have all the front panel connected. We have the 8-pin and the 4-pin that come out to a 8 and 8 on both sides. So now let's go ahead and put in the power supply down here. All right, so we'll just drop it right in here. Oh, thank you. So because they thought ahead again, most cases don't do this. In fact, the Lian Li I just didn't do this. When you slide in a power supply here, from up here to the top of the power supply is super tight. So you have an issue with this HD audio cable. But here, they give you plenty of room to just slide in your power supply and screw it in if you'd like. So another awesome thing this case does. Now, one thing we can't forget is to connect the 2 EPS CPU powers, and thankfully, since we have so much space, I've already cabled all these from a previous build, so I know they work. But you want to plan ahead and make sure that you connect all the cables you need if your power supply is modular. Okay, and it doesn't really matter which of the 2 CPUs you connect into where, they're all the same. So I just connect any which one there. So that's it, they're connected. Now I'm going to go ahead and slide in the power supply. This is perfect. And then we'll go ahead and screw in all of the 4 screws. And like we've done before, we'll screw in this one about 50%, line it up, then we'll screw in the diagonal one right up here, and then the rest we'll screw in 50% as well. Now that we're on the 4th, we'll go ahead and screw that in 100%, and you'll notice everything come out a little tiny bit. Power supply was just pulled in. Incredibly easy. Now we'll go ahead and place all the cables where they need to be. So ATX 24 pin goes up here. I want to make sure I don't get in the way of any other cables. And actually, because of the way everything is, that's the only cable we need out here. Aside from these 2 CPU 8 pins, any of the SATA powers or anything else, we're done. We just need to slide them in here. We need to put in the Evo 860 right here. Let me do that now. Just take this out. I will grab the drive and I'll put it right here. I'll line it up, these 4 screw holes, and using the same motherboard screws, and now I'll just screw in all the other 4, so 1 second. All right, all 4 connected. Now we just need to slide in the SATA data cable and the SATA power cable. So the SATA power cable, notice that little L right here is going to match up with this little L right over here. So we'll just slide that right in. And then you'll notice that other little L over here is going to match up with that little L on the SATA data connection. We'll just slide that right in here. And we'll go ahead and drop this right here. Screw it in. And now we'll slide this SATA cable behind all the other cables right in through this hole over here. And then we'll slide this SATA cable right over here. Now we'll plug in the SATA power cable over here. Now that we have everything in, might have to cable manage a lot. We'll take care of that in a minute. I'm gonna go ahead and slide this. First, take this piece of plastic off of the riser cable. We're gonna go ahead and insert it right over here. Actually, where they had it originally, right up here, is incorrect. For this board at least, we're gonna have to drop it 1 to right over here. So I'm going to take this out. And then raise it right up here. And just put it back in. Now I'm gonna go ahead and drop the card right in that very first PCIe slot. Just in case you're a little unsure, we'd plug this right into this slot, making sure this is open. And once we push that in, this little retention mechanism I opened will snap back in place. All right, perfect. Now we just need to screw it in right over here. Now we'll go ahead and put this back where it was over here. And we need to screw these back in as well that held the PCB in place. Not the greatest angle, sorry guys. Horrible angle for me as well. And over here. Now, since we're going to be plugging in a graphics card here, I'll just take that piece off, and I'm removing the 2 screws that I know I'll need to remove. I don't remember if there was a third, but we'll find out in a minute. And actually, before we put the graphics card down, let's make sure all the rest of the cables that we need to potentially put down here are set. 1 second. So if you remember, on the other side of the board, or on the front side of the board, we had connected one ARGB cable here, a 3-pin, and there was another ARGB header right over here. Problem is, it's about 1 inch away, so very close. Unfortunately, I don't have any other way of bringing that cable together, so I'm going to have to use an extender. So I'll just join these 2 cables together and then extend it a full 1 inch over here. Now you can't see it, I can barely see it myself, but it's up here. So the 2-pin is on the bottom, the single pin is at the very top. Now another thing we can do, if that one is just out of the reach, which it kind of is because we have such a long cable, we could bring it down over here to the other ARGB cable or header, right down here. Yeah, ARGB headers. Right down here, and you just can't see it, but I can barely. It's gonna be the same way we connected the other one. I was able to fit it right behind here. Again, big pain in the butt, but I got it in there. It's directly behind this cable here. But now we have this cable connected all the way to that ARGB connection over here. So now let's go ahead and drop the video card in the PCIe riser card right here. And since we've removed the 2 PCIe slots, now we have better access over here. And let me bring you in a little bit lower so you can see the card going in. Okay, now here you can see the PCIe fingers. Now I'm going to push it all the way in. Okay, now the card is completely in the slot. Now I just need to screw in the video card. And now coming around over here, I'm going to slide the Cablemod cable. I'm going to use one of the holes on the bottom of the case. Perfect, this one right over here. And now, because we can see the glass over here, you can see the cable coming over here. And now we can bring the cable right here. Make sure it clicked. Incredibly small click, but it did click. And there you could see it. Coming around over here, you can see where that cable came in. So I'm just going to go ahead. Let's see, how do I make this look nice? I'm gonna slide it this way. Okay, sliding it in under itself, and then the ATX 24 pin. We're gonna do the same because there is a fan down here. So now all the cables are connected. Now all we need to do, actually, we're missing this one fan header. Gonna go connect that right over here. Video card's going to be in the way. I'm gonna need to move it, so 1 sec. Now that's the other fan that did not get connected. The rear fan up here, that is another DC fan, and we'll connect it just like we did the other one. Easy enough, but again, very difficult to see. I kind of had to feel my way around, and now that that's there, I have a little bit more leeway to play with the cable to make it look nice. I'm also going to make this look nice. So as it is right now, if I were to plug everything in, turn on the power, it would work. Everything would work just fine. It just doesn't look so pretty. but the back looks like that. So now in this portion of the video, we're going to go in fast forward. I'm going to start disconnecting, reconnecting, making everything look nice and pretty for the next video where we turn on the machine for the very first time. We install Windows, we install all the drivers, we install all that good stuff and get you up and going so that you can start gaming. So let's get on with this portion of the video. All right, so let me know what you think. The back to me looks all clean, not too horrible of a rat's nest. I say that looks pretty good. And then also the fact that there is nothing on that fan. She is spinning freely. Coming around the front, you can see she looks beautiful. I messed around a little bit more with the cables up here. Not much you can really notice. And then also made this look a lot better. Cables, or the tubes I should say, are not perfect here, but they'll work. You can kind of seat them on top of the video card, but I'd rather a little bit sticking out. Now I am worried on how thick or how much space this has. I see a little over an inch. Now I can't really measure this with a caliper because of the odd way that it is, but we have a little, maybe about 1.25 inches of space there between the front panel, the side panel I should say, and the card. Being that we're going to get some airflow over here, that's some of it is going to pass through here, and we're going to get some upward airflow down here. I don't know how much of that is going to get into here, but definitely we're going to find out in the next video. So feels very tight, very hard to get a good view on how that looks with all the glare and the tint and everything, but 1.25 inches, that's a little tight, not incredibly tight, but it's a little tight. We'll see very soon how she performs and how she sounds. So we've gone over a complete build from the ground up inside of the HYTE Y40 mid-tower case. The build quality is awesome. Every single thing about the case is beautiful, and so many things just work right. Now the only thing that has me a little scared, one single thing, is that clearance up here. It could just be me, but I feel like that's too small. But we're definitely going to find out in the next video. In the next video, we're going to go ahead and flash the BIOS, and then in that flash, we're going to configure the BIOS. Then after that, we're going to install Windows, install all the drivers, then update Windows and do some optimizations. In that video, I hope to show you a ton. In that video, we're going to learn a lot more, and then after that, we're going to do the final review where we wrap up everything and we do some benchmarks and we do some testing, some thermals, noise testing, all that good stuff. So stay tuned on ThisBytesForYou for more. Iggy with ThisBytesForYou out. See you guys.